The Mid-American Stock Car Series races all across the Midwest in Wisconsin and Illinois. Also into Iowa and Minnesota, even occasionally in southern Michigan. But this week the stop is for the Hometown 50 at Jefferson Speedway in Cambridge, Wisconsin. These 450 horsepower machines draw a really nice crowd. Hello everybody, I'm Stephen Cox, along with Olivia Pritchett, who is working pit road, and had a chance to talk with Doug Strasberg, the series director.
I'm looking forward to a good race. This track is really a neat track. Both ends of the track are different, and it's a challenge to set up. So it's going to be a challenging race. Many of these guys have never been here before.
This particular track is short, so things happen very quickly. 1 and 2, the fastest way around the track is at the bottom, and at 3 and 4, you got to go back up to the top. And so it's a very active track. There's a lot of moving around, and you got to really get your car set up to be able to handle well on both ends. So it's a challenge to see if our team can get the car set up to where I can equally at least kind of be competitive with them.
Well, let's take a look at the Hometown 50 and find out what the event schedule will shake out to be. We have 3 major events throughout the weekend. First of all, qualifications are 2 laps, and they determine the main event grid. From that point, we go into heat races. 2 heat races, 10 laps each. That's for cash and for series points only. It does not affect the main grid for the main event. When we get to the feature race, we'll go 50 times around this asphalt bull ring, and the grid will be based again all the way back on your qualifications. We had a fantastic pair of heat races today. Let's flash back and look earlier in the day and find out what took place. Starting up front, it was the 66 of Chris Story who jumped out to a really nice lead over the 174 of Tim Fulford, who's a really good shoe. There's a look at the 31 Bochette Timepieces car that briefly held 3rd place. But the guy to beat was the 66 of Chris Story. He started out front and would have pasted the field had it not been for the spin of the 27 car of Travis Rodewald. He was one of a number of guys who were loose all weekend long. Well, that bunched up the field once more. We take a look at it, and Travis was just driving a really loose car. You can see a lot of wheel hop on that left rear, and that turned him right around with no help whatsoever. But he gets back on the gas, we go back to green, and Chris Story is looking really, really good out at the front of the field. Now, he does get a little bit of pressure from Brian Holtz, but Brian was running the inside line at both ends of the racetrack, and that's really not the preferred line. Chris Story hangs on for the win.
Is this what you were expecting based on practice?
Yes, I spun out in qualifying, so I got their start up front, so a little easier that way.
What are your expectations for the feature event now?
It's going to be a long, hard ride. I got to start in the very back, so it's going to take me a long time to work my way up.
Now let's look into heat race number 2, which also took place earlier today. The field came down for the green, and the 74 of Rick Tackman Jr. took a very quick lead over the 101. That was Jimmy Evans in the bright yellow and orange car. We hop on board very quickly with Scott Knoll with the mechanical engine performance onboard camera. He shows you the fast way around here, but the 74 car decided to drive things just a little bit higher through 1 and 2. That gave an opportunity for the 48 of Brad Keefe to start closing in. Now in 3 and 4, the high line is preferred, but once again, it's the only line available for Brad Keefe in the 48, so he stays on the low side at both ends of the racetrack, and this turns into its own show. The 48 and the 74 side by side for the win in the second heat race. If you take a good look at the 48 car as he goes into the corners, especially in turn number 3, look at the gap between the left rear wheel and the fender. It really widens as he loads up the front right into that race car. He comes out in turn number 4, just a half a car length ahead of Rick Tackman, and he is going to take the win.
Brad, awesome job. You had quite a fight there. 74 had it for a long time. How did you catch up?
The car is really good. We kind of just messed up in qualifying, and we should have been a lot better, qualified a lot better. We got a really good race car, and I think 50 laps, it'll be a fun night here yet tonight. I think the car will be even better in a 50-lap race than on a short run.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So that wraps up the action from the heat races earlier in the day, but right now we look at the field forming up behind the 54 of Mark Plur and the 74 of Rick Tackman. They'll lead us to the Hometown 50 green flag in a moment. From 1978 to 88, General Motors built something called the metric chassis. Now, that's what a Mid-American car is. That's why it's a true sportsman car. Now, there's a little bit of tubing from the rear wheels back, but everything from this point forward, so far as the chassis is concerned, is genuine General Motors metric chassis. Now, the suspension points are also standard to the metric chassis. They've not changed. Now, the components, of course, are different. They have racing springs and upgraded racing shocks and so forth. But otherwise, you're looking not at a late model, but at the top of the heap, a true elite sportsman car with a Mid-American Stock Car Series. We are getting ready to go green in just a few moments here at Jefferson Speedway in Cambridge, Wisconsin. That is just east and a little bit south of the Madison, Wisconsin area. But first of all, we want to take a look at the entire grid and get them all lined up and ready to go for this 50-lap hometown feature. Starting on row 1, it's a former winner in the series, number 54, Mark Pluer, alongside Rick Tackman Jr., who took home a heat race win not long ago. Jimmy Evans in the 101 alongside Dan Gilster. They make up row 2. Row 3 is Dustin Krebs in the number 80 and Tyler Bownick in the 33. Tyler running his first race in the Mid-Am Series this year. Frank Slabanek Jr. fast everywhere he goes. Brad Keith has several wins on the docket this year as well. Row 5 is Ryan Gutnick in the 01 car alongside the 2012 Series champion Jeremy Spoonmore in the 22. Row 6 is the veteran Scott Knoll in the 62 and Brian Holtz almost won at the Milwaukee Mile in the 38. Row 7, Ben Glasscock alongside David McCullough in the number 3. Inside row 8, it's Travis Rodewald, a former heat winner in the 27, and Stephen Cox, the road racing champ, in the number 31, starts 16th. Row 9, Tim Fulford out of Indiana, a really good shoe in the 174, and David Slack in the number 30. Row 10 is Chris Story in the number 66, a heat winner from earlier, and Butch Mierendorf in the number 12. Well, that completes the entire field, and they'll go around slowly a time or two, and now watch the 54 of Mark Pluer alongside in the black and pink car with the pink numbers. That's Rick Tackman Jr. They pick up the speed, and the green flag will come out, and the hometown 50 is underway. The 74 of Rick Tackman Jr. actually drops down to the inside, and the 54 of Mark Pluer now tries the high side. And here's something very interesting about this racetrack as they go into turn 1. Watch this. In turn 1 and 2, you want the inside line. That's the preferred line. It's very flat down there. There's not a lot of banking, but when you get up into turn 3 and 4, you want to be on the high side, and you can see the 54 of Mark Pluer get sideways there coming out of turn 4. That is the preferred way to get around this racetrack. Let's jump on board with Mark Pluer. You'll notice that most of the drivers, when the car is set up right, you want to drive into the corner and let off the gas just one time and let the car roll into the center of the corner as we jump on board with Scott Knoll, and then pick up on the gas just one time. Scott's doing it right. He's been around this sport for a very long time.
It's just my wife and I and our dog. That's all we have here. It's challenging, especially in a day when you're trying to get the car to work, but we're getting it done. This is my 30th year in driving stock cars. Technically, I started out racing my street car in what they call spectator drags around Wisconsin and Illinois. Then I graduated up to the 4-cylinder cars, which we call the mini stocks international class. Did that for quite a few years, and I went up to the limited late models, and then we decided, let's go traveling. So we built the Mid-American car, and we've been doing Mid-American since 2000.
And now the yellow light comes on. In fact, we're going to slow down the field for this issue. That's the 12 of Butch Mierendorf and the 66 of Chris Story at the back of the field. Those two were trying to race through the field to get up front, and they ended up in a spin. And that really gives us a chance to take a deep breath and talk to Chris Story about his racing career.
About 9 years ago, I started racing in a charity for the Lions Club, and we traveled around, and Lake Geneva's raceways where we primarily raced, and it closed down. So I had to find a place where I could go race on my schedule that didn't race, 20, 30 nights, because I can't do that. These guys win no matter where they race. You know what I'm saying? If you're going to compete on a high level with the car you got, this is the highest level for the car that we have.
And Chris makes a really good point there, because if you're going to run a GM metric chassis, I mean, years ago you had choices with the Cars Series throughout the Midwest and a number of other places to run, but this is kind of the top of the heap with the Mid-American Stock Car Series if you're into the elite sportsman models. So Brad Keith in the 48 will hold the lead, a narrow lead over Mark Plur in the 54, and also the 33 of Tyler Baunick is in the running as well. Welcome back to Cambridge, Wisconsin and Jefferson Speedway. This is the hometown 50. Now the 48 of Brad Keith has held the lead, but the 54 of Mark Plur was pressuring him pretty hard until the 33 got into it. Now we've got a big battle going for second place right now, and I think there's some contact between those two on the backstretch. Mark Plur will have to back out of it just a little bit and hand over second place to the 33 of Tyler Baunick in his first run in the Mid-American Stock Car Series this year. Now you're on board with the 54 of Mark Plur, who says this place is really tough to run.
Yeah, I've raced here before. It's a tough place. You know, the corners are so different, as everybody will tell you. It's challenging, so, you know, you're good on one end, not so good on the other. Guys are going to beat and bang a little bit, so whatever happens, happens. Be ready for it. And it all depends on the guys up front. You know, if they run clean, get single file. We got a cone option this year to pick a lane, so a lot of times if guys will take the good lane, you might make up a few spots if you can make a pass, you know, in the bad lane, and take advantage of that. So.
Look a little further back in the field. That's the 29 of Frank Slavinik Jr. and the 80 of Dusty Krebs right in front of him. Let's go on board with the 62 of Scott Knoll and just enjoy this battle. Now that is some really close racing. You saw the 62 of Scott Knoll actually get into the side of Dusty Krebs in the 80, who put up just a fantastic fight there for 6th place. Now, let's move back to the front of the field. The 48 of Brad Keith is really commanding the field now. Look at the gap he has opened up over the 33 car of Tyler Baunick in 2nd place. So unless a yellow comes out, Brad Keith is really going to be able to stop looking in his rearview mirror. But Rick Tackman in the 54 and Mark Plur are going at it, and this is another battle for the top 5, and I wonder if Mark Plur is having some issues with that car. We're hearing from our pit road reporter, Olivia Pritchett, now that he may have a miss in that engine or something underneath the hood isn't quite right. And that's pretty evident because you just saw the 74 drive right underneath him, and now trouble in turns 1 and 2. Dusty Krebs caught up in that. The 101 of Jimmy Evans is in that crash. And last year's champion, the white number 22, is involved in that as well. That's Jeremy Spoonmore and the 27 of Travis Rodewald, all in that accident. Let's look at it again. Who is that gets sideways? That is the 80 of Dusty Krebs. I'm not sure if he got help or not. Now you can see the 01 black and blue car there of Ryan Gutnick. He just squeezes through as officials will now come out and try to clean up the mess, and that's going to pack up the field again, and that means that Brad Keith can say goodbye to that huge lead he had over 2nd place in the 33, Tyler Baunick. On board with the number 54, Mark Plur in 3rd place. We'll line them up again and look for another green flag to get back to green flag racing in the hometown 50. It's Brad Keith in the 48 who will lead into turn number 1. The 33 of Tyler Baunick in 2nd place. And look at Mark Plur try the low side coming down the backstretch. I wonder if he still has enough horsepower to make that stick. We're going to try to track that story through the remaining laps of this race because Mark Plur may have something going wrong under that hood. So we'll keep an eye on that. In the meantime, Olivia spoke earlier today with our leader.
No, we're not out points racing yet. We're just out to win races and bring the car home in one piece every night and just have a good time. I think tonight if we get a top 5, be real happy and just bring the car home in one piece and, you know, just have a good time more than anything. The car is good. We worked on it all morning, getting everything ready. The crew and everybody's just been working hard, and we've been thrashing away here at the track and hoping it feels good, but we'll find out after qualifying.
What do you expect your biggest challenge to be in the race tonight?
Lap traffic. I think we're going to have a lot of lap cars. Hopefully not right away. and hopefully not a lot of cautions.
And that's interesting because the first couple of times that they started to run into lap traffic, they had yellows that strung the field out again. There's the 62 and the 29. That's Scott Knoll and Frank Slavinik Jr. And now the 23. That is Danny Gilster getting up into that fight for the top 5 position right now. Scott Knoll is running in 5th. You see Scott take the high line again through turns 3 and 4, and it's surprising how quickly you run out of room and rush up against that outside wall when you come off the banking in turn 4. Brad Keith still leading. Tyler Baunicht in second. We'll be back to Jefferson Speedway in just a moment. Jefferson Speedway, the track, Cambridge, Wisconsin, the city, and the leader is the 48 of Brad Keith, who has really kind of run off and left everybody again, but the 33 of Tyler Baunicht just won't give up. For a while, he trailed by more than a straightaway. Then a yellow came out. Brad Keith ran out to a big lead again, but guess who's coming on for a second time? Baunicht in the 33 has narrowed it down to about a 5-car length lead right now, and then in third place it's Mark Plur in the 54. Let's jump on board with Mark Plur and listen to that engine for just a moment. Mark is definitely not getting the revs he needs out of that engine, so Olivia Pritchett on pit row has reported us a couple of things that turn out to be prophetic. First of all, problems with the engine of the 54, and secondly, we're hearing now that the tires may be giving up or some type of handling problem with the 33 of Tyler Baunicht. Now, this is what I find very interesting about his line. Look at the line of the 48 car going into 1 and 2. The 33 is diving in lower into turns 1 and 3. Let's watch him right here as he goes into turn 3. He dives in about a half a groove too low, and then the car slides high coming out of turn 4. That's not the way you want to drive this track, and that tells me that the reports are probably true. I think that Tyler's having some kind of a handling issue with that car, and I don't think he's making up the ground that he was before. Just a few laps ago, we saw Tyler Baunicht's 33 car come right up on the tail, maybe 2 or 3 car lengths behind the leader in the 48 of Brad Keith, but I don't think he's getting that close anymore. And it looks like Mark Plur is now hanging on for dear life in third position. He's trying to hang on against Frank Slavinik. David Slack is in on that mess. Brian Holtz in the 38 has been fast, and now we have just 1 lap to go for the 48 car of Brad Keith. 1 more set of turns to hold off Tyler Baunicht, and he's going to make it happen. Brad Keith takes home another win in the Mid-American Stock Car Series. It'll be interesting to hear from the top 3 guys after this race and see what kind of issues they were dealing with, because, you know, the 48 of Brad Keith ran out on the field twice. He just went off and left everybody, and he looked like he was going to make it look easy until Tyler Baunicht came on the scene and actually passed up Mark Plur in the 54. Now, let's head down to Olivia Pritchett on pit row here in just a few moments and find out what our winner has to say as he pulls backwards into victory lane at Jefferson Speedway after winning the hometown 50.
Brad, congratulations. Awesome job. Tell me how you're feeling right now.
Good. Overwhelmed. I mean, we had a good car. I didn't think it was going to be that good starting 8th and be able to work on the top or the bottom and just get through traffic like we did. This thing is just amazing. Feels good.
What happened? I mean, you had such a dramatic change from the last race.
That last race was kind of rough. Track conditions weren't the greatest, and we just got here, track that I come to and practiced at once earlier this year, and we just felt confident coming here. We got here a little late today, didn't get a lot of practice in, but hey, we're here.
When you win, you ought to get something worthwhile. Now, that's an award that'll look good on any trophy case in America. Congratulations. Let's talk to second and third place.
Biggest challenge was to save the tires. Tires are a big thing here. You know, I tried to save my right rear, and I thought I could get them at the end, but, you know, the tires just went away too fast, and there's nothing I could do about it. You know, he had a better car, stronger car than mine, so.
Well, you know, a lot of people would kill for second place, so where does this rank in your accomplishments?
It's up there, but, you know, second place, you know, I'm happy with it, but, you know, everybody wants to win, you know, so it's kind of disappointing, but also, you know, this is my first race this year in the Mid-Am, so I'm pretty happy.
I started on the front row, so it was pretty easy there. Problem was I slipped back. My miss came back, so the car wasn't running right. I thought we fixed it this morning. Obviously we didn't. Just flat-footing it around the whole track, just hanging on for the best I could get. And third place, I'm happy with that. Just another day at the races, you know. Good times, bad times. You got to take the good and the bad. You know, it's a pretty good finish for having a problem. So we'll come back next week and get them.
So Brad Keith takes home the win in the 48 car. Tyler Baudnick in second, Mark Plur in third. Now let's look at some interesting stories in the rest of the field. Scott Knoll fights his way forward in the 62. Ryan Gutnick, Frank Slabanek, and Dan Gilster just had a killer battle among themselves. Travis Rodewald in the 27. Stephen Cox drives all the way from the back of the field up the 9th, followed by Rick Tackman Jr. And boy, was it a fun night and a great crowd here at Jefferson Speedway. Thanks for watching the Hometown 50. We'll see you next time with a Mid-American Stock Car Series.